All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending tonight's meeting. I see that it's 5 o'clock on the dot, so we are going ahead and kick off tonight's meeting. To ensure accessibility to all CSC members, residents, and members of the public, we'll be providing instructions on choosing the correct language channel on Zoom at this time. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, we ask that you please select the world-like interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and then select English. If you're using Zoom via a telephone or a tablet, please select the 3 dots to see more options, followed by the interpretation icon and then English. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to Lingüística so that they can review these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. El día de hoy vamos a tener disponible el servicio de interpretación para aquellas personas que lo necesiten. Si se están conectando de una computadora, en la parte de abajo del menú de Zoom hay un icono que parece un mundo. Pueden seleccionar ese icono, seleccionan interpretación de idiomas y seleccionamos español y silenciar el audio original para que puedan escuchar solamente la interpretación al español. Y si se están conectando desde una tableta o desde un dispositivo móvil, tienen que tocar su pantalla, seleccionan los 3 puntos, interpretación de idiomas, luego seleccionamos español y nuevamente silenciar el audio original. Y una vez que hayan terminado, seleccionan terminado, finalizado o listo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana, for reviewing those instructions in Spanish. Now that we're all in the correct channel, we will continue. If you have any issues connecting to the correct channel, please let us know by either raising your hand or you can also post in the chat and we'll be happy to help you. Good evening once again, everyone, and welcome to October's Community Steering Committee meeting. This is the 58th one for Shafter. It's great to see everyone here. I hope everyone's having a wonderful start to the week. My name is Vanessa Gomez, and I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting with my colleagues, Dr. Amy Ramos and Dr. Diana McDonald. We're joined today by Stephanie Ng and Rocio Calderon from the Air District. Before we delve into the agenda items for tonight's meeting, there are some housekeeping items that I would like to review with you all. I know that these are familiar to many of you, but it's always helpful to have a reminder of what these are before we kick off the meeting. Before we get started, we ask that you please mute yourself and make sure that your full name and organization are showing as your screen name. To change your screen name, you can click on the top right side of your picture or video. CSC members can use the naming convention CSC -first name, last name. If you're a resident, you can use R-first name, last name. And for all other participants, please use first name, last name, -affiliation. If you're a member of the Air District or California Air Resources Board, you can use AD or CARB as your affiliation. And for members of the general public, please use P as your affiliation. For all other organizations, you can write your organization name as your affiliation. And I'd like to note that meeting hosts may update your screen name during the meeting to ensure that we're addressing everyone correctly and keeping track of everyone who's in attendance. So we thank you in advance for your cooperation with this. As you know, Dr. Ramos and I and Dr. McDonald and I are available to help with technical support and to keep track of action items throughout today's meeting. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you have any questions, you can, as always, comment via the chat, or you may also raise your hand. We do not have a co-host tonight, and we continue to encourage anyone who would like to volunteer as co-host for a CSC meeting to let us know so that we can support you and make that happen. As a reminder, our co-hosts decide the level of participation and facilitation that they take on during the meeting. Our team at H&Co and the Air District will work closely with you to ensure that you feel well supported during the meeting. If you have any recommendations on how to best encourage CSC members to become co-hosts, or maybe you know somebody that would be a good fit and would be interested, please don't hesitate to send them our way and we'll be happy to reach out to them. I want to thank you all first off for taking the time to be here tonight. We value your ongoing commitment and your engagement in this process, and it's ultimately because of you that your community will be able to develop and implement new strategies to monitor air quality as well as reduce harmful health impacts. Before we continue, we do have some virtual meeting agreements that we would like you to adhere to. We ask that you please stay on mute unless you are speaking or planning to speak. You can use *6 if participating by phone. Please raise your Zoom hand to ask a question during a presentation, question and answer. You can use *9 if participating by phone. And for residents in the stipend program, we ask that you please stay on for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for a stipend. That would equal 90 minutes of tonight's 2-hour meeting. As a reminder, before we launch into our first item on the agenda, please don't forget that the agenda topics for today's meeting are a direct representation of the topics that are requested by CSC members. In other words, these are topics that the CSC has asked to have a discussion about either during the last CSC meeting or during the most recent agenda setting meeting. Today's agenda items are designed to provide updates on action items from last month's meeting, begin a discussion on the AB617 draft annual report, provide updates on SERP measure implementation, and provide standing updates. Also, as you can see, we have our usual public comment item at the end of the meeting, but we do encourage people to ask questions at the end of each agenda item if they have them, so that they don't have to wait until the very end to have their questions answered. Before I continue, does anyone have any questions about the agenda items that you see today or any of the virtual agreements from the previous slide? I'm also happy to move on to the previous slide if you would like to see those again. Just let me know.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay. Thank you so much, Diana. I also don't see any raised hands or any comments in the chat, so we'll go ahead and continue. At this time, I would like to pass the mic on to Stephanie Ng from the Air District for opening remarks.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Vanessa, for that introduction. I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight and just for spending your evenings with us to improve air quality in the community and bring really great resources to residents of the Shafter community. Tonight, we're excited to bring updates to you all on the annual report, like Vanessa mentioned, and also some exciting SERP updates as well, especially on a few of our measures like our passenger vehicle repair and passenger vehicle replace measures. For transparency, I did just want to share, we have a handful of district staff here to support the meeting. We have Rocio here, who's your community liaison. We also have Jamie Holt, who's with our outreach and communications team. Marisela, who's also with our outreach team and our translation liaison. And then we also have Carrie and Brian here to support they're from our grants team, and they're here to support our SERP update presentation. I also did want to share later today during standing updates, we will have an exciting update for you all from our methane task force. So you'll see some folks from CARB and also CalGEM in our meeting today to give that update. Anyway, looking forward to a great meeting, and I'll go ahead and kick it back to Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for those opening remarks. Appreciate it. At this time, I would like to transition onto our first agenda item of the night, which is the review of the action items tracker. Part of our work together is to increase transparency and accountability, which is why we continue to dedicate a portion of each CSC meeting to review the action items tracker with the committee. We appreciate the Air District's efforts to update the tracker to ensure that all your voices are being heard and that you're able to monitor progress toward implementing the suggestions that you're providing. As a reminder to everyone, at the end of each CSC meeting, we do share action items with the CSC and encourage members to add on to the action items that we documented, as well as to make changes to the items in case we misinterpreted your requests. As Rocio provides updates, please feel free to ask for clarification if you need it. Our team will also make sure to take note of any follow-up questions that are being asked. And if they're not answered tonight, we'll be sure to return to your questions at a future meeting. Rocio, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good evening, everyone. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen to begin with the action items. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Okay, so let's start off with the first action items in the section in progress. So we only have one today. And the action items for the Air District to share a survey about, to seek support for submitting a project plan to CARB about the new measure in the heavy duty truck replacement program, as well as sharing any general information. And so the Air District will provide an update on the truck replacement measure during today's meeting, and we'll continue to work with the CSC and CARB to move forward with implementing this measure. So moving on to the next section in completed. So in the last meeting, we did have 2 follow-up questions for the EV trucks. The first one being, what is the anticipated battery life on the EV trucks? And so there's no direct answer, as there are different types of battery chemistry and several factors that affect the lifespan of the battery, such as natural aging over time and how much energy is cycled through the battery. And the second question was if startup companies that don't have any vehicles, if they can buy any EV trucks for the first time. And so the funding source does require emission reductions. So if the businesses don't already have any existing or operating vehicles, they will not be eligible. And so moving on to the next action item, for the Air District to share a map of where the bike lane is on State Route 43 and curb and gutter project in the Mexican colony. And so today we will be sharing that map with folks in the presentation. And so the last action item, so CalGEM will provide updates on the inspection results to the CSC members from the Methane Task Force joint inspections of oil wells in the Shafter community. And there will be an update on this in today's meeting as well during standing updates. And I also went ahead and included the links right here where the reports on the inspections are posted. And I do see a raised hand from Linda. Go ahead.
Going back to the heavy duty truck, so you had made a comment about a startup company, but it was also mentioned that they were looking into asking CARB to see if we're not going to smash up a vehicle. So that would that go out to say like a nonprofit or something that might be existing that has a car, but I thought there was mention that we might try and ask to see if we weren't going to smash up a vehicle, right? Wasn't that provided by the woman that gave the talk? Is that off the table?
No, hi, Linda. This is Stephanie. It's not, we're still working on it. And so that I'll plan to provide an update that we are continuing to work with the CSC. And then also an important part of this is also working with CARB, who would need to approve the plan on kind of these concepts like you're mentioning, like not scrapping or maybe even delaying scrapping. That's not off the table. And I'll plan to provide an update during our SERP update presentation about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Steph. Is there any more questions on the action items? If not, I'll hand it back to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rocio. Before we continue, I know that some folks asked specific questions about battery life and the startup companies, and so want to give folks one more chance to provide any questions or comments before we transition onto the draft annual report. Okay, not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to my colleague, Dr. Ramos, to begin a discussion on the draft annual report.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Not delayed. I'm having a weird internet. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. If for some reason I cut out, just let me know. Good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here today with you. For this next agenda item, we are going to be discussing the draft annual report. I don't know about you all, but I can't believe it's already been a year since the last annual report. So it's that time again for the Air District to provide an update of where they're at in drafting all of the accomplishments and the milestones that you all helped meet during this last year. So it's a time to kind of reflect on successes and potentially areas of growth for the Shafter community. So the purpose of this agenda item is to ensure that CSC members and attendees for tonight receives an update and really understands the content of the report and has a chance to provide feedback to inform the final iteration of the report. So at this time, we'd love to invite the Air District to provide us with an update on where they're at in drafting the report and provide us with some key highlights so that you all can ask questions and really ask for clarification. As always, we encourage you to share your questions by raising your hand and placing them on the comments on the chat. We will make sure that we can keep track of all the questions that you have. We'll be writing down any notes that you have so that when the Air District goes to modify the draft report, they have notes to reflect on to ensure that they're representing your voice tonight. And of course, there'll be multiple places for you to provide your input. So Stephanie, would you like to take it away?
Thank you so much, Amy, for that framing. Hi, everyone. Stephanie again. And I'm going to go ahead and provide an update on our AB617 annual report. Like Amy shared, it is crazy how a year's passed already. And so as a reminder to folks, this report is really, there's kind of twofold for the purpose. It is a requirement by CARB that we do annual reporting each year. But also I think it is a really great opportunity for us to reflect back on this past year and think about kind of all the things that we've achieved in this past year to really also help set us up for thinking about in this coming year, kind of things that we want to prioritize, how we want to move forward certain measures. And so like Amy mentioned, I'm going to be showing a draft report that we're happy to take feedback on. I'm going to walk through certain sections of the report. I won't walk through all of it because it is a little, I think, dizzying to try and, scroll through a lot of it. So I'm going to maybe walk through some high level parts. And then also share some information about kind of timeline, when we're hoping to get this feedback, ways you can give us this feedback. And then after that, I'm happy to take questions or receive any comments. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm actually going to start us on our main Shafter page to kind of orient folks to where you can find this posted on our website. We did email it out. Also, if you opt into receiving printed copies of materials for our meetings, we also mailed out copies of the annual report as well. If you didn't receive it and would like to receive a printed copy, please let us know in the chat, or you can call or email us and we're happy to mail you a copy of this if that's how you prefer to review printed materials. But down here on the right side at the very bottom, you can go to Reports and Document Archive. And then you'll see a lot of different reports here. We do have our quarterly enforcement reports as well as our annual enforcement report, which is actually part of this main AB617 annual report, which is this first column here. I'm actually going to show the English copy right now. And I'll zoom in here. It's nice and big. Just to kind of start us off, I think as most folks on this call know, these efforts that we're undergoing in AB617 is something that we're undergoing kind of across the valley. We have 4 communities that are kind of working through this process at various stages. And so the first couple of pages are really kind of talking high level about across the board, what kind of impact is AB617 having across the board in our valley? It kind of highlights really like what kind of CAP funding has been invested into the valley communities, different things that we've exchanged like lawnmowers or school buses, the different types of rule amendments we've made or inspections we've done in the community. This is really high level across all the communities. But as we dig into the report, all the remaining sections are really kind of digging into Shafter in particular. And so at the beginning, we're kind of highlighting just all the different types of ways that we look to engage with community members, avenues in which you all receive your materials, and ways that we kind of meet as a group. Something that we highlighted that I know was like a highlight of many folks on, I'll say just for kind of our district team, and I'm sure the Harder team, and I hope many of you, was our in-person meeting that we had in May. And so we do hope to kind of carry these on in the future, but just kind of giving updates on the in-person meeting, and really kind of digging into it. The meat of this report is talking about kind of the SERP implementation updates. And so this table kind of highlights the measures that you all have kind of prioritized, and shares a high level, just kind of comprehensive updates on all of them. I'm going to kind of scroll through a little bit. We also have just other highlights about kind of the project plan process. These are, of course, things that need to get submitted to CARB in order for us to move these projects forward. We also highlight some of the projects that we've been able to open up, move forward, such as our Clean Air Room program, which I think many folks in here know. I hope all of you are aware of the program and have been able to take advantage. But it's the program to give free air purifiers to residents in the community. This was definitely a highlight, I think, of this reporting year, to be able to open up this program that specifically benefits residents. We also talk about our paving projects, which I know also are of high priority to the community. And then kind of as we're moving forward, we also want to highlight all of the important work that we do kind of as a group when we do need to kind of rethink about things that we originally kind of put in the SERP. Some highlights of that are for the air filtration program, reevaluating kind of some of the other measures like our school air filtration measure, and potentially reallocating funds. These are really crucial decisions that the CSC made that we want to kind of highlight in this annual report. And then also a lot of the outreach we've done. We gave an update last month that we did do some school outreach, and we've held some different outreach events like our show and tell event specific for the boundary. And so these are all things that we wanted to put in the report to kind of highlight and how we're moving forward some of the SERP measures. I'm actually going to scroll down here and also discuss that there is a section that is devoted to kind of the work that's been done on our pesticide measure, and just kind of like an update in terms of DPR coming in, giving the demo that they did. This is definitely something that is as a result of kind of the hard work that the Shafter community did. And so we definitely want to highlight that as well. And I'll just move us down. There's a couple of appendices at the end of the annual report that I think will be familiar to folks. This is our SERP tracker. I won't try, it's a big document, I think better seen on your own screens or maybe mailed out. But this is a very comprehensive update document that we update monthly. It's posted on our website. If you receive packets from us, kind of mailed copies of things, this is something that's mailed out every single month. That provides updates on all of our SERP measures, including our incentive and non-incentive measures. So that's included in this report, as well as our annual enforcement report. And so this annual enforcement report, it is a very comprehensive report that provides information about the permitted facilities that are in the boundary, the different inspections and complaints and violations that were found in the community in the last reporting period. And so that's kind of the bulk of the annual report. This is mainly just definitely to kind of tee up the conversation and to reintroduce you. I know many of you will kind of remember this from last year, but reintroduce you to this annual report to begin to think about what we've done this past year. And we're happy to take really any feedback that you have about this annual report. To give you all context, this is something that we are planning to bring to our district governing board in November, just as an update on our AB617 program. And so there's actually still plenty of time for you all to provide feedback. We'll be taking it until Friday, November 3rd. And then again, we're happy to really take feedback any way that CSC members are comfortable. You're welcome to email us, or if you want to get on the phone with any of our district team, we're happy to do that, or even set up Zoom calls. And again, if anyone wants a printed copy of this, please let us know, and we're happy to mail out printed copies to folks.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I see Bianca's on. But before, Bianca, you ask your question, just wondering, Stephanie, if you can give us an example, the type of feedback that you might receive, as we have some new members in the committee who might be thinking, oh, like what type of feedback could I possibly give the air district?
Yeah, thanks, Amy, for that question. That's a great point. I think if there's anything, definitely if there's any measures or any, in terms of SERP implementation, if there was anything that you wanted to see highlighted or included, any community events or any type of kind of, I think, work that we've done in the past year in any of our meetings that you think was a really something important to include. Even if it's not in this past reporting period, obviously we want to highlight that, but if it's something that you all saw in last year's annual report that you want to bring back and highlight and kind of continue to focus on, we're happy to kind of take that feedback as well. Or if there's anything in the report that you want to see differently kind of visually, that's all stuff that we can take feedback on.
Thank you, Stephanie. Bianca, go ahead.
Okay, so I was looking at the annual report. There was certain violations that happened on the enforcement plan. I was wondering how much were the fines in the area, and can we get details of those fines, because it only states VOC issues, things like that, but we want to see how bad contaminated these facilities or industries were able to damage the community, and wanted to get more details. I also saw that in your report you mentioned that the air district has the tendency of going to facilities to do random testing, and if they comply for 3 years, they're off the hook, or I believe it's 3 or 4 years. Is the air district going to do any follow-up just in case, if those facilities that do comply to the regulation of the air district, would they do any random inspection? That's my second question. Third, I have quite a few, but I spoke to Stephanie and I told her that we're going to have a separate meeting on it. But thirdly, I would like to see any changes from the SERP, that any changes that happened in the year 2022, I'm sorry. I would like to see any progress, because I did see that there were some for the sidewalks, and wanted to get updates also on that.
Thanks, Bianca. Okay, thanks, Bianca. Sorry, maybe I'll just let you know, Bianca, I was having difficulty hearing you. I don't know if maybe it's a connection issue. I think I heard the gist of what you're saying, but I'm not sure if there's a way for, I don't know exactly what it was, but you were sounding pretty staticky, just an FYI.
Yeah, Stephanie, I'm wondering if you could repeat the questions as you answer them. There were 3 main questions.
And I tried to get them too, Stephanie. So if I'm getting something that you didn't get, I could jump in.
Yeah, this is Stephanie. I have some answers to them, and then I think for some of them I might have to follow up a little bit more with my team. But the first question was about in the annual enforcement report, there is a section that kind of summarizes the violations that were collected in the community, and just heard the desire to hear more about kind of the fines that were associated with them. I will maybe share, this is something I can bring back to the team and ask a little more about. And then something I will share is I do know that for violations, they are something that's ongoing, and sometimes in terms of the response to it, sometimes we'll have updates as we continue to work with the facility to resolve the violations. So that's something I'll follow up with my team, because I do know that sometimes when we're working with them, we'll continue to provide updates on the violations, and we'll be able to provide additional responses in terms of if someone was to receive a violation. But I can follow up for more information on that one. The second question, I did hear, maybe I'll skip to the third question because I do remember that one. Diana, I might need your help for the second one. The third question was updates on, I believe, paving projects and things that have happened in the year 2022. And so, Bianca, I don't know if you want to provide a little more clarity, but this report is exactly doing that, of providing updates of things that have happened in 2022. It does include a section on the paving projects that we've had that we're working on. I'll actually provide an update. It'll be kind of a little update based on an action item from last month on the paving projects as well.
have one in regards to, because in page 11, it mentioned that on Route 43, there was some work being done with the community, the city of Shafter. But it gave a timeline for 2024. So my understanding is going to take a long time to get that process done. Is it because of the air district, or is it because of the city of Shafter not having the time to do the work? Those are my two questions. And then also, it also mentioned about La Colonia Mexicana, the project that they're doing in La Colonia, because of the work that has to be with, it's taking a little bit longer. But has the county provided any timeline for this project to be completely done, or is there any updates that community can receive from that project? Because it's really stating about the rotating.
Bianca, you're cutting off. That last piece, we just didn't hear you. I don't know if you want to put your question in the chat.
This is Stephanie. I think I heard maybe the gist of the question that I'll answer. And Bianca, if I don't answer anything, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can totally text me the question too. I heard just in terms of just wanting like an update on paving projects and timelines. I'll share across the board generally, paving projects take a very long time. It's not kind of specific to any projects that are happening in Shafter. That's just the nature of paving projects. They take kind of a long time to happen because a lot of pieces need to happen in order for it to take place. I'll share this update a little more detail later, but the city of Shafter is working diligently on this project. There's a lot of steps. They have to find someone to do engineering and design services. Someone actually has to do the work. And so it just is not a project that takes, these types of paving projects just do take a long time. And in terms of the county, I'm happy to talk more about it a little bit later, but we are continuing to work with the county on finalizing the contract for that project in La Colonia. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, this is Steve with the City of Bakersfield. I actually spoke to my Public Works Director last month. He said the funding agreement for the SR 43 pedestrian and bike lane improvements project was recently executed. Public Works intends to issue an RFP for preliminary engineering and design services this month. Upon award, those services should realistically take 6 to 9 months to complete. Construction completion is expected by the end of 2024. So in about a year. That's actually very good and quick for doing curb, gutter, sidewalk, and road improvements because of, like you said, the lead time for engineering and then actually doing the project. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve, for that update. Are there any questions about the annual report at this time?
Add that time frame to the annual report, because it would make a lot of changes in seeing the work being done in the.
Thank you, Bianca. We can definitely add more context. I think it is just high level. We're anticipating work, but I think like you're saying, it would be nice to provide a little bit of like kind of the middle steps of what needs to happen for us to get there. Thank you. I'm writing that down.
Not seeing any hands raised at this time. Any other folks have questions or maybe suggestions about how to best highlight the work that you all have accomplished in this last year?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe one last thing I'll add is I just want to reiterate the offer. If anyone wants to talk about the annual report, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to, call you over the phone, Zoom with you or anything. I think, I mean, honestly, the thanks is to the committee for this. And this is just exactly kind of the reflection, like Amy is saying, of the work that you all have been doing in these monthly meetings and subcommittee meetings, kind of, you know, in your emails and your advocacy in the community. And so I definitely think we want this to be a true reflection of how community members are feeling about this process and what's been accomplished in this past year. And I did see Bianca.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I keep asking questions and I really have bad reception. I don't know if you could hear me.
We can make it out, sort of. If you hear me leaning in, I'm like, I don't know why I naturally lean in, but you're good. Go ahead.
I think when you talk slower, it's a little bit better.
Okay, so I also wanted to get more clarity on the reporting, because I'm looking at the monitoring, the air monitoring, but I don't see any reports of maybe a couple of days where there were spikes or things like that. So we could give an example like the 4th of July when there was a big spike, and giving us a breakdown why those spikes do happen in the area would be nice to have. I don't know if it's too late to amend that piece, but it would be nice to have at least some of the monitoring in the report.
Thanks, Bianca. I think that's a great point. We do weekly and kind of quarterly air monitoring reports to the community, but it's definitely not too late. We can include some more information about some of the data that we're seeing at certain days, you know, in the community from this past year. I think that'd be great.
I want to recognize that this report, although it's in draft format, it's still quite a comprehensive report that has a lot of detail and a lot of content. And we all process information in different ways. This might be the very first time that you're looking at it and kind of hearing about some of the accomplishments from the CSC in this last year. So as you continue to digest the content that's in this report, please do reach out to the Air District to provide your feedback in all of the ways that Stephanie has just mentioned. That is setting up a Zoom meeting, setting up a phone call conversation, really providing a space to ensure that this report does reflect the hard work that everyone has contributed to in this last year. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next agenda item. And of course, if things come up as we progress on to the next agenda item, please do feel free to raise your hand or put your comment in the chat. So at this time, we're going to transition to talk a little bit about some of the SERP measure implementation updates. And thank you, Steve, for kicking us off and talking about some of those vital updates that are already happening in the community. So during this item, we'll hear directly from the Air District, who will be sharing about the proposed truck project plan that the CSC received information about during last month's meeting. And we'll talk a little bit about the new pathway to the truck replacement SERP measure, and talk a little bit about how this SERP measure is designed to purchase zero emission trucks. We'll talk about the community benefits of this measure and talk a lot more about how to reduce emissions from heavy duty diesel trucks. The goal of this item, along with the goal of talking about other SERP updates like the passenger vehicle replacement program, is to ensure that you all hear about the progress towards implementation and really hear directly from you all as CSC members on any questions that you have about progress towards implementation. So during this time, as you listen to all of these updates, please do feel free to jump in and ask any questions that you have. There's a lot of information that's about to be shared, so I want to make sure that each of you has an opportunity to process the updates and to also ask your questions. So with that said, I think I'll pass it to Stephanie to kick us off, but I know the entire Air District team is here today to answer all the questions that you may have regarding each of the items that I've just mentioned. Stephanie, please take it away.
Thanks, Amy. This is Stephanie. I do have a presentation prepared, and there'll be a couple sections. We'll kick it off with passenger vehicle repair and replace. And I think just after every SERP measure, I'll just pause and allow time for questions. I did a little introduction at the beginning, but I did want to share with folks that we do have two special guests today from Valley Clean Air Now, or Valley CAN. We have Jose Marin and then Tom Knox. And we definitely wanted to kind of in this conversation, we'll have a couple of questions to receive feedback and kind of start a discussion about program implementation and outreach for two of our measures, passenger vehicle repair and passenger vehicle replacement. And Valley Can is really kind of our implementing partner in this, it's on the ground running the program. And so we definitely want them to be here to answer any questions that you all might have, but also to kind of receive the feedback that the CSC is also sharing. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And like I just mentioned, I'll kind of pause at a couple of points to hear any questions or comments that CSC members might have. Can everyone see my slide?
Yep.
Oh, thank you, Diana. Perfect. So like I mentioned, we'll have kind of updates on a few of our CERT measures. We're going to kick it off with our passenger vehicle repair and passenger vehicle replace measures. An exciting update that we have for you all is the project plans. And again, these are plans that we submit to CARB for approval so that we can kick off the program. The project plans for both programs were actually approved by CARB and our district governing board, which is very exciting. These are two important and crucial steps that need to happen ahead of us kicking off the programs. As a reminder to folks, it has been a minute since I think we've talked about either of these measures. So to kind of orient you and remind you of the programs, our passenger vehicle repair measure provides funding for emissions related repairs for high polluting vehicles that are operating, and that should say, sorry, Shafter, in our Shafter community. And we do have $1 million allocated in our community, in the Shafter community. And then also for our passenger vehicle. Oh, and as a reminder to folks, if you're familiar with our tune-in, tune-up events, that's kind of really, those are, that's what this measure is kind of supporting. Those tune-in, tune-up events provide folks the opportunity to participate in this program in events in the community. We also have our passenger vehicle replacement measure, which is funding to replace older passenger vehicles with battery electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles. And we do have $1,600,000 allocated in that measure. As an update to folks, so we did in September take this to our district governing board. And today what we'd like to do is work with the CSC on program outreach and implementation. Like I mentioned, we did get it approved kind of by CARB and our district governing board. And I know Valley Can and our grants team is working really hard to start to get all the pieces lined up so that we can begin to open these programs up. But we did want to work with the CSC to really kind of think about how specifically in our Shafter community, what we can do to make sure these programs, the information gets out to residents, and we can make sure the implementation is successful as possible. And so we do have two questions that we want to pose to you all, and as well as maybe get some, for those that aren't familiar with the programs. I know that Jose here is kind of a big expert in really kind of the experience of how these programs run. And so I do want to pass to him to give him an opportunity to also talk about the programs. And so I do have a question kind of for discussion for both of the measures. And the first, I'll kind of ask the first one, hear CSC questions and feedback, and then move to the next one. The first question, though, is for our passenger vehicle repair measure, participants that are interested can directly apply to us to receive the incentive funding. However, Valley Can also does hold these tune-in, tune-up events. And so a question that we wanted to pose to the group and get feedback is the CSC interested in holding these types of events in Shafter? And if that's the case, what type, if we'd also need to kind of look into potentially locations for this type of thing. The tune-in, tune-up events, definitely, they are a big production, and they do require kind of a certain amount of space to be able to run these events. And so we definitely want to get feedback on kind of that as well. And before I open it up, I wondered if I could maybe pass to Jose to share with the CSC. If someone's not been to a tune-in, tune-up event, I'm wondering if maybe in a quick minute or two, if you can describe what someone might experience and what it's like to attend a tune-in, tune-up event.
Absolutely, Stephanie. Thank you. And I just a real quick question. I am on my cell phone data, so I can't see the chats that easy. I know that the explanation here is directed as a Fresno, but the funding amounts are the that are listed here. Do those apply to Shafter or Fresno? I'm just asking this for the general meeting.
This is for the numbers should reflect our Shafter community.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'll just share, we did a little bit of homework some time back within the community of Shafter on possible venues. And we actually did identify some locations that could work for in-person tune-in, tune-up events. So I'll leave you with that info, Stephanie, and CSC community. Thank you for allowing us to be here and share about these programs with the community here with Shafter. And the Tune In Tune Up program is essentially an emissions related reduction component of things that we do here at Valley Can with the support of Valley Air District. And what participants or drivers experiment by coming at a Tune In Tune Up event is our doors open on a Saturday morning at 6:30 in the morning. Our testing starts at 8 a.m., goes to 12 noon. And when we test for, we go into the exhaust with a probe. We test for two modes through the exhaust. And that reveals if the vehicle is above the standards that the state of California establishes for smog requirements. And if that is the case, then the participant receives a voucher that has the worth of $850. And that voucher is redeemable at a Star qualified repair shop within the same community. So this is going to be targeted to specifically the area of Shafter that is within this boundaries. So all of the drivers that would be expected to attend will ahead of time know through either a text or as they drive into the event, we give them a list of the shops that are participating to execute this repairs. That's in a nutshell what the Tune In Tune Up emissions repairs event is about. There's a raised hand. Stephanie, I don't know if you'd like for me to take that question, if that's for me.
So sorry, that's actually my hand. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of Zoom issues, but I did want to provide an update because I misspoke. I'm so glad, Jose, that you asked that question. I'm going to share my screen because I do actually have an update on the numbers here, and I apologize. Just going to share my screen once more to share an updated slide. This is a conversation we're having across all our communities, and that actually reflected our Fresno community. And so this is the update that I have kind of for our Shafter community. Our passenger vehicle repair measure is for $400,000, and then our passenger vehicle replace, which I think CSC members might recall that in Shafter you all elected to kind of raise that incentive amount per vehicle to up to $20,000. We have $6 million in passenger vehicle replacement. And so just noting in our Shafter community, this is the amount, $400,000 for repair, and then passenger vehicle replace is $6 million. All right. Thank you so much, Jose, for that explanation of the Tune In Tune Up events. We're totally happy to kind of receive any feedback. And I'm noting there are some comments already in the chat about some locations. The Sheriff's Department has a big lot. And then also ladies were mentioning behind the school district office. Maybe I could ask, maybe other folks know, but maybe I could ask for clarification for what school district office?
Richland School District office.
Perfect.
It's also known as like the pool, Richland Pool. There's a big parking lot there.
Thanks, Linda.
Stephanie, I'll jump back in if you allow me. I think you were also asking kind of for opinions on whether the CSC would like to have this event in person, or if they would like to offer the residents an opportunity to call in and participate in a virtual fashion. Did I get that correctly?
Yes, exactly, Jose. I know that there are opportunities for folks to just kind of submit an application and kind of go through the program themselves. But if members were interested, and definitely want to hear from folks, we could investigate and see, if there is a space that we can hold the event, we can definitely look into that, and potentially look to host an event in the community. Thanks, Jose.
Seeing some comments, Jose, about having it in person from Bianca.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'd love to come to the community of Shafter. October the 28th, we'll be holding a Tune In, Tune Up in person at the Kern County Fairgrounds. If the CSC would like to come and check out what the events are like in person, more than welcome. I'll leave my information on the chat as well. So feel free to reach out to me. Let me know if you'd like to come by. We'd be happy to give you a tour of our Tune In, Tune Up in Bakersfield. Again, that would be October the 28th at the KC Fairgrounds.
Bianca, are you asking for the Air District to send a flyer?
Yeah, I'd be happy to post that on the chat as well.
Great. Thank you.
All right, seeing lots of comments in the chat just about in terms of potential locations that we can look into to see if they'd be suitable for this type of event, and seeing a preference or support for an in-person Tune In, Tune Up event. Are there any other questions about our passenger vehicle repair measure or Tune In, Tune Up events? Not seeing any. I'm happy to take any. We're going to continue the conversation. We're going to slightly switch over to a different measure, but still happy to hear any comments or questions about the repair program. But with that, and while we have Jose, I'm going to pop us over to our passenger vehicle replacement measure. For this measure, kind of similarly, folks can kind of apply on their own and kind of go through the program in that way. But in addition to this, Valley can actually hold outreach events at local restaurants to assist with, interested participants. Normally they kind of post up at a local restaurant, they'll provide food, and they'll be there to sit with residents to help answer questions, to help them apply through the program. And so a question that we wanted to pose to the group is, where in the community would be a good spot to kind of hold that type of event? And when? Is it something, do you think during the daytime, when parents are, their kids are at school and they have the time? Is it in the evening? Is it during a weekday, a weekend? Those types of questions. And maybe I do see a hand up, but maybe I'll do the kind of the same for Tune In, Tune Up, the Tune In, Tune Up event, and maybe pass to Jose to just really high level and really quickly to talk about what, if someone wanted to go to one of these events, like what does it look like?
Of course. Thank you, Stephanie, again. So our vehicle replacement workshops that we hold in person at the various communities are heavy grassroots outreach driven. And what this entails is we encourage participants to give us a call ahead of time, give us an opportunity to prep them so that when we do come into their community, they can come to meet with us, ask the appropriate questions that they may have, bring their paperwork so that we could quickly start the process for them. We equip ourselves with a scanner. We keep ourselves obviously with Wi-Fi, a computer and everything, so that we could remotely assist the local communities right there in person, because there's nothing better than the tangible part, that you're face to face with the people that can actually walk you through the entire process. So kind of what it entails, we usually hold these events later in the evening between 5 and 7 p.m. Throughout the valley. And so, we've seen really good results, but we'd be more than happy to accommodate the different days or the different times that would work specifically for Shafter. You would know the lifestyle of this community. So we're all ears and we're ready for your recommendations. We want to make it work for your community. Thank you, Stephanie.
Go ahead, Linda.
I just wanted to throw out a suggestion about using Richland Chevrolet here in town. They have electric cars. And so I just thought it would be nice to maybe have some evening ones, like we said, and also on the weekends. And that way folks could look at the cars too. And they both have bilingual sales folks. So that would be helpful. I also just want to throw out, I don't really know how this application works, but for example, Chevy, I believe they're on strike. So how is that going to work? Is there a time frame stipulation for these folks that are trying to trade in their cars? Because I don't know how that strike is going to affect new cars coming in for them. Thanks.
This is Stephanie. Thanks, Michelle or Linda, sorry, for the suggestions. I'll maybe just share that generally this program, we're looking to open it hopefully later in October, and it just is kind of a first come, first serve application basis. Generally, I think across the board, we haven't heard that, vehicles aren't available on the lot, but I'm wondering, Carrie, I don't know if you have maybe a more detailed response to that in terms of maybe availability of vehicles across the board.
It's an interesting point. My name is Carrie Todd, and definitely nice to be here this evening. And really quick, just wanted to highlight, Stephanie, what you had mentioned earlier in the annual report, the in-person Shafter meeting. I was actually able to attend, and that was a fantastic event in person, and probably the first in-person event I had attended since COVID. So definitely appreciated that event, and good to see all of you again. I haven't specifically heard any issues with shortage of the new vehicles per se, but ultimately we do try to be as flexible as we possibly can with the timeframes. So if there's opportunity to, approve somebody and give them that time that essentially would be needed to kind of ride that situation out if it came to that, there is definitely potential there for that. I did see something come through the chat. Can we have the application sent to us? So we do, yes, we ultimately can provide that application. We do have it's ultimately kind of fed through an online portal through our website, but we can certainly provide the information that we'd be looking for in that application.
Okay. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Nope, that was all I had. Linda, let us know if you had any follow-up to that. I don't know if that answered your question.
I'm sorry, I just had a sneezing attack. Could you repeat that?
Did that answer your question, Linda? In terms of kind of, I think Carrie was just mentioning, I think in terms of people like applying and maybe like trying to seek out a vehicle, I do think, we have heard, and it does sound like it's getting better kind of in terms of kind of shortages with vehicles. But I think kind of to Carrie's point, it does sound like we have flexibility, and we'll try to work with folks when they do submit an application to us.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we would work with folks, because I heard Chevy just went on strike. So it's going to be going forward that we could have some issues. So I just want to make sure Shafter residents can get the cars, and there's not a strict time frame on it. That was all.
Yeah, and that's a really great point, Linda, and thank you very much for bringing that up. And just to reiterate what Stephanie said, we do try to be as flexible to the extent we possibly can be with the funding. So in regards to timeframes, we will absolutely try to, cater to those types of situations.
And maybe just as an update to folks, kind of to Michelle's question about applications, we're happy to kind of share that information out. Once the programs are open, we'll be sure to kind of share that information out with the CSCs. That way you're not just kind of guessing of when, it could be available to you. And for you to, we definitely want to use the CSC's kind of networks and, want to get this information out to friends, neighbors, other community members. So we'll definitely let folks know when these programs are up and running. Does anyone else have any recommendations of locations to potentially hold, like maybe good local restaurants in the community that folks might attend to kind of learn more about and potentially apply for the passenger vehicle replacement measure?
Tin Cup has a big area. I don't know if they're open on a Saturday. They're not open on the evenings. They're, what else has? I don't know of another restaurant. What's the one there though?
Doesn't sound like it, Stephanie.
No worries. We're happy to, maybe we'll also just tee up that if folks think of something like later tonight after the meeting in a week, like feel free to always let us know. We're definitely open to still taking feedback after this meeting.
There's also Don Pepe's on Lerdo Highway, and they have a separate back room, and they even have a projector.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Linda.
And I saw Mariana Bell get up. I'm not sure if you had a question or were trying to unmute. Just want to make sure I didn't miss a hand. Don Pepe's and Tony's Firehouse.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. If you all have any feedback, please continue to let us know. I also maybe to close off, I'll share a picture of what one of these events looks like, just to give folks kind of a flavor of what to expect. This is generally kind of the concept. At a local restaurant, there's food available. Staff is there with laptops to answer questions and help people apply. And there's definitely great success and kind of turnout with these types of events in other communities. Well, perfect.
Thanks for the visual. I know the visual always helps make the request a little bit more transparent and accessible. Stephanie, were there any other updates on the SERP that you'd like to discuss, or are we ready to move on?
We're good to move on. I just wanted to thanks, Amy. And I just wanted to thank Jose and also Tom for being here, and also our grants team for answering questions. I'm going to move us along in this presentation and provide some other SERP updates that we do have. These are ones that might feel familiar because we've actually given we've given updates in previous meetings regarding them, and are just bringing you additional continual updates as we get them. The first is for our urban greening measure. I think some folks might remember that we did have the request for proposal, or RFP, which was soliciting an entity, a group to administer the program. We did open it and we didn't have any applications. And so we recently reopened it. And we did have the city of Shafter submit an application to that. Kind of next steps for us is we do need to review that proposal and make sure it's kind of complete and that all the aspects are good with it. And we also have an update. We did share this, I believe 2 meetings ago. We have our car share program. And folks might remember, we also for that program had an open request for proposal, or RFP, to seek a group to implement this program. We did receive an application from MioCar. And so we are moving forward with both of these measures. And so we'll continue to review. We're at the stage where the district does need to review both of the proposals. And so we'll continue to bring updates to the CSC as we have them. And I'll kind of move us forward to our heavy duty truck measure. And so As an update to this measure, we did, and I know, thanks Linda for setting us up so well kind of with your question during our action item tracker. We did have last month, we presented a concept for a proposed project plan that had, and after that meeting, we did have kind of a concept to send out a survey to folks to see if folks did want to support that measure. In the last few weeks, we've actually had some updates to the measure that I want to bring to you all today. And we also kind of following that meeting did hear some concerns from some folks on the CSC of just wanting the opportunity to continue to get more information from about this measure in general. And so today I'll bring a couple of updates and just kind of the commitment from the district to continue to work on these measures. And so a couple of things is, again, like I mentioned kind of at the start of this meeting, this is definitely something that we need to work with CARB, our California Air Resources Board, to be able to kind of implement the measure. Ultimately, we'll submit a project plan to them for approval. And so we will continue to work with CARB just on kind of concepts that they feel make sense for this measure and are things that they can kind of approve and fund with this type of funding from AB617. And so we'll continue to work with CARB to kind of on concepts for this replacement measure to increase participation in the program. Something that we actually do want to do across the board. I think I shared also with folks that we are planning on and actively are having this conversation across all 4 of our CSCs that we have here in the Valley. And across the board, I think it's definitely something that we want to do more outreach. I think we did hear just across the board and even in Shafter, just the desire to make sure that the folks that, are applying to this program, we're trying to focus in on really the small businesses and single owner operators when possible. And so something that we do want to do is continue to do outreach. And so we are working with CARB to get a list of businesses, truck businesses in the community. This is something they do register with CARB. And so we're hoping to get a list of these businesses and really directly reach out to every single one of them that we can to talk about the truck replacement measure and see whether or not it's something that they can take advantage of and to let them know about these new concepts that we discussed. And so in the last meeting, we discussed the concept of potentially not scrapping the vehicle, or potentially could they look to participate in the program if we maybe gave them a year to scrap their vehicle. And so we definitely want to hear more directly from a lot of the businesses that are in the community to see, if they could take advantage and how they could take advantage of the program. And then finally, we will continue to work, of course, with the CSC on this project plan and implementing the measure just in general. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. Something that I did want to propose is if there's a lot of desire to kind of continue talking, I do think I did hear from at least a couple members that they had kind of some concerns and wanted to continue discussing this. Something that we did want to propose is potentially a truck subcommittee that we can dig really in depth and detailed into for folks that really want to talk trucks and have the concerns that they want answered. And we are happy to kind of host that, share the space, and continue to answer questions from folks. So with that, I'll go ahead and maybe pause and see if there are any questions there.
Go ahead, Linda.
If there's someone else who wants to go first, go ahead. I just, I had a question in regards to this, because you had mentioned these trucks would be for like grocery deliveries and stuff. So with that being said, is there a certain percentage of maybe the business not being based out of Shafter, but services Shafter being able to apply?
And that's a concept we can definitely talk to work with you all on. There is a requirement in kind of the proposed project plan that we brought to you all of a certain amount of trips that are in the boundary, because really what we're looking for is, of course, those reduced emissions in the boundary. And so there is a requirement in this proposed project plan for a number of trips in the community. But we're happy to hear kind of thoughts from the CSC of, whether or not it's someone we call it domiciled, someone that's like kind of, based in the boundary, or for potentially interest in involving businesses that impact the community, that drive through the community.
And with that, is there an extra incentive for them because they're going to be buying this truck that's going to cost still a good portion for the supercharger or something to charge it so that they can continue to make the routes? Because it was also mentioned that the weight of the EV structure, that's going to be less loads that they can haul, like weight wise. So I'm assuming that's going to make some more trips, correct? So they're going to have to charge more often if they have to keep coming back and forth.
Yeah, and maybe to get to your point, and Brian, feel free to hop in anywhere here, but there is, we do have incentive funding available for heavy duty charging infrastructure. And then I do think it maybe is kind of operation to operation, depending on what they're up to. I think there's a lot of factors to think about. I think definitely distance, but weight, depending on kind of what they are actually, what there is in their load. I know that can impact kind of the amount of times they'll need to charge. So I do think it maybe is dependent on kind of their operations. But Brian, I don't know if you have anything else to add in there.
Yeah, I mean, for any of these projects to work, you've really got to combine it with the right infrastructure.
Yeah.
And at this point, for electric trucks, kind of the best case scenarios are trucks that return to base at the end of the day and have charging infrastructure there. So for these types of projects, we would like to package infrastructure and trucks as much as possible, so that people have the resources. Like, we wouldn't want to have somebody have an electric truck with no ability to charge it. And the public charging is coming along, but ideally people would have a home base where these are charged overnight and then are ready for the next day's work.
Do we have any of those superchargers coming in to Shafter that are in a public area? Because I'm just saying, if a delivery truck comes into Shafter, that means they're probably going to go to Wasco and Delano too. And
yeah, there's
of that. So is that something that might be coming?
There's several like heavy duty electric infrastructure projects in the works in Kern County. I don't know that there's one specifically in Shafter, but there are a number that are sort of nearby, especially along that I-5 corridor. But also there's some infrastructure going on along the 99 corridor as well. So it would be great to have something in Shafter if we can find the right partner and the right setup there for sure.
Thanks, Brian. I see Bianca has her hand raised as well. Go ahead, Bianca.
I noticed that in the yearly report they were mentioning about a proposal for a mechanical outreach or a mechanical education for electric trucks. Is that part of that funding also, or is that a separate funding? I know it doesn't correlate, but in somehow training mechanics to do the work in these trucks would also help in making the project more successful or not successful. If there's no mechanics that would want to do it, then where do these owner operators are able to take their trucks that one day might have any problem?
Thanks, Bianca, for that question. So for those of you that maybe are less familiar with it, Bianca is asking about, we have in the SERP a measure that's related to EV mechanic training. And that's totally a great point. I think there is a correlation to kind of like folks that can work on these EV trucks in that measure. The funding that's in the measure and kind of the amount that's allocated to it, really, it would be to support an existing EV mechanic kind of training effort that's going on kind of in the Shafter community, or that supports the Shafter community. There's a lot right now, I think, as you all might imagine, kind of with EVs becoming such a necessary, really, or kind of like a big field that a lot of folks are looking to kind of make that transition. Of course, the desire and kind of need to have mechanics, especially locally in the area, is definitely increasing as well. And so we're looking to kind of support, those existing EV mechanic programs and types of things that are happening in the community. But to your point, at this time, folks that kind of, I think, do require maintenance. Right now, the way that the infrastructure is set up, it's my understanding is bringing it back to kind of the manufacturer. Carrie or Brian, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, you're exactly right, Stephanie. So at this point, for heavy duty electric vehicles, a lot of that initial work, certainly under warranty, they would have their training, their OEMs, their dealer network to be able to maintain those. But there is a lot of work going on across community colleges and other trade schools and things like that to get people trained up on this technology, so that because there is going to be this whole industry, new industry, to be able to support and maintain these electric vehicles as they become available and as they get off of that warranty cycle. So yeah, you'll need to have people to maintain that. But that, as Stephanie mentioned, that's a whole separate kind of pot of funding related to this, but wouldn't detract or take away anything from this particular measure.
Thanks, Brian. Michelle, please go ahead.
Well, we've talked a lot about things about this. Do we already have the program set? We're looking for more people to be interested. Where do we find the guidelines for the program as they are now?
That is a great question. We do have, I believe, resources on our grants website for folks to take advantage of it. Maybe I can, Carrie or Brian, if you could share that in the chat. And Brian, I see
we can pull a link to the truck replacement program guidelines and attach those.
Yeah. And Michelle, that's a great point. I just maybe want to reiterate to folks that the truck replacement program is currently open and is available for, the funding is available as it kind of stands in the traditional program that does require folks to scrap their existing truck to kind of take advantage of that funding. And then kind of the additional conversations that we'll continue to have with you all is as we're kind of doing outreach, as we're kind of, working with smaller businesses, to see, their level of interest, whether or not they could participate, whether or not there's new pathways that we can open to increase participation in the program. Thanks, Michelle, for your question.
Thanks, Stephanie. I think we're ready to move on to the next measure update.
Sounds good. Well, thank you all kind of for your questions. Should anyone have them kind of about the truck replacement measure, we're happy to kind of continue to take feedback. And just as a commitment to you all, we'll definitely plan to bring updates to you all just about kind of our outreach efforts that we're working on to reach out to businesses, single owner operators that are kind of operating within the Shafter boundaries. And yeah, happy to continue to take feedback and work with you all to answer any questions that you might have. And with that, I'm going to move us on. The last part of this presentation is actually an action item and then just, it sounded like there were some questions generally about our paving projects. During our last meeting, folks asked to see higher quality pictures of the 2 paving projects that the CSC supported, and then also our district governing board approved. Like Steve actually just mentioned, our State Route 43 project is actually it's already underway. The city of Shafter is working on it. And then our La Colonia project, we are working on finalizing the contract with Kern County. And so I'm just going to share my screen. These are higher quality. I know that they're still not the best, but they are higher quality pictures of these projects. So again, as a reminder, this is on State Route 43, and we're working with the city of Shafter, and this project will construct a new paved shoulder and bicycle lane. There's curb and gutter work as well, and sidewalk improvements along the west side of State Route 43 between Mayor Lane. So that's kind of up here, and then all the way down to West Tulare Avenue. And then this is Fresno Avenue right here. So again, like Steve mentioned, this contract has been executed, and so the city is working to kind of seek out engineering and design services And then kind of after they're able to reward those services, it does take some time to actually complete the work. And they're looking to get that work completed by the end of 2024. The second project that folks had just wanted to see, hopefully this is a better, higher quality map. This is the project in La Colonia, and this is with Kern County. And this project will construct sidewalks, curbs, and gutters along, it's a couple of streets actually, it's along Burbank, Rodriguez, Martinez, Paseo de Pico, and then Manal Avenue, and it's about 0.8 miles in length. And so we are working on Kern County to kind of finalize that contract. Does anyone have any questions about kind of those projects? I hope the pictures where it gave you a little bit, like Amy said, I think visuals are always important. So I hope that gave you a little more clarity on kind of where this would take place in the community. And with that, that was actually my SERP update presentation. Happy to take any questions that folks might have, but otherwise I will pass it back to the facilitation team.
Thank you, Stephanie. This is Amy. It sounds like the Air District has been very busy in this last month, implementing many of these SERP measures. Thanks for that comprehensive update for today. I'll let that content settle in, see if you all have any follow-up questions as you think about what has been discussed so far and some of the materials that have been provided to you. Taking a look at the agenda, we are a little bit ahead of time. So if you do have any questions, this would be the time to ask. In the absence of observing any raised hands, I'm going to go ahead and move us to our next agenda item. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Vanessa, to walk us through our updates. Vanessa?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Amy, for facilitating those last two items. And thanks, everyone, so much for your participation, for your engagement up until this point. At this time, we are going to go over standing updates. We have updates from a couple of agencies. First up, I'd like to open the floor for standing updates to CARB.
Hello, thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie Rodriguez. I am an air pollution specialist with CARB. I actually used to be the area inspector for Shafter and Wasco, so it's very nice to see so many familiar faces. It's an absolute pleasure to be here tonight, and I will be giving the Shafter Methane Task Force update, the inspections that were performed in September. But before I begin and get into those updates, I wanted to briefly go over meetings and events that occurred prior to the inspections taking place, just for members who may not have been present for those meetings. So prior to the inspections taking place, there was a meeting on June 12th, 2023, where the Methane Task Force engaged with the Shafter Community Steering Committee to provide an overview of key efforts underway that were aimed at addressing leaks from oil and gas wells. During that meeting, the Methane Task Force also received feedback on a proposed inspection plan. And then on August 14th of 2023, the Methane Task Force further engaged with the CSC to seek additional input on the inspection plan. And throughout this process and these conversations, the community of Shafter expressed concerns when it came to the safety of the leaking wells. And in response to this, the Methane Task Force developed a comprehensive sampling and analysis plan and a notification of risk plan. These plans were implemented during the inspections that occurred. I would like to note, though, that there were no leaks observed during the inspections that met the defined thresholds, so no sampling was taken, and emergency personnel did not have to be notified. So now on to the actual inspection. So from September 12th to September 14th, the Methane Task Force did field inspections within the community of Shafter and Wasco. Staff from CalGEM and CARP, including myself, and the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District inspected a total of 73 wells. Of these wells, 3 wells are operated by Crimson Resource Management, 10 are operated by JP Oil, and 60 were operated, I apologize, by California Resource Production Corporation. Out of the 73 wells, 22 are considered critical because they are located within 100 feet of public streets or 300 feet of buildings. And then out of the 73 wells, 18 wells operated by CRC were found to be leaking at the time of the inspection. A total of 22 leaks were discovered. Of the 22 leaks, 17 of the discovered leaks were subject to CARB's oil and gas regulation. 3 of those 17 leaks were greater than 50,000 parts per million and were issued notices of violation by the district. By September 15, 2023, the 17 leaks subject to CARB's oil and gas regulation were repaired, re-inspected, and considered in compliance with the regulation. In addition to the violations issued by the district, CalGEM issued violations for all leaks discovered. CalGEM is currently actively working with CRC to schedule follow-up inspections and to confirm compliance for the leaks that they issued violations for. Throughout the inspections, it was the Methane Task Force was committed to providing real-time inspection information. Because of this, daily inspection data was posted on CARB's webpage by close of business day of the day following inspection. I'm going to drop in the chat really quick the link to that webpage. So if anyone within the community would like to look at that inspection data, they're welcome to. A final inspection report will be posted to the Methane Task Force webpage as soon as possible. And once we have posted that inspection report, we will provide a link to the community. And finally, I just wanted to let the committee know and the community of Shafter know that if you're interested in finding out or getting updates on the Methane Task Force, there is going to be a public Methane Task Force meeting held on October 17th, and you are more than welcome to join. That's it for my update. I will open it up if anyone has any questions.
Thanks so much, Ellie, for that update. Are there any questions or comments from the CSC regarding that update?
This is Stephanie. Maybe just a quick thing I'll add. Thanks, Ellie, for the update. And thanks, I know there are a couple folks, including like Matthew here from our Methane Task Force. And just kind of to give context to folks. So this was a quick verbal update that we're having, but like Ellie mentioned, there's going to be kind of a final report that we'll share out with to the group. And they'll plan to come back once more to give kind of a more comprehensive update. So we'll see the Methane Task Force once again, just to give final updates on this report. So if you heard a lot of information and need to process it, we'll plan to give you kind of a written report and you'll have more time to kind of read through it on your own time and ask your questions.
And Stephanie, there's a question from Bianca in the chat. Are they going to do any more inspections for the other wells? And can we have a reminder for the Methane Task Force meetings, please?
Yeah, so CalGEM is currently actively working with CRC to go out and re-inspect the remaining wells that need to be repaired and re-inspected. So there will be follow-up inspections to be completed. But as far as our CARB's oil and gas regulation, all of the leaks that were discovered that were subject to that regulation have been re-inspected and are considered in compliance with the regulation.
Thank you, Ellie. Bianca, I see that you asked those questions, so just want to make sure that those were answered to your liking, and also wanted to check to see if you had any follow-up questions about that.
Yes, I have a follow-up. I was actually typing at the same time, but it was easier for me to ask. Was there any monetary charge for these violations from these companies, or just a warning to fix a problem and reinstate whatever, or reinspect the wells?
So when it comes to CARB's oil and gas regulation, there is a monetary fine that is associated with it. As far as CalGEM, I'll kind of give this over to Matt from CalGEM because I'm not really familiar with their notices of violation.
Thanks, Ellie. Yes, I can pitch in here. So with for the violations of CalGEM's regulations, which requires the operators to maintain their facilities in a leak-free environment, we issued informal notices of violations first. And if they come back into compliance and do the repairs that they're supposed to do, there will be no fines associated with those violations.
I'm seeing that Bianca said she's having trouble with her interpretation and asked if you could repeat that again.
Yes, I can do that again and try to go a little bit slower this time too. So when these violations of CalGEM regulations, which require operators to maintain their facilities in a leak-free environment, we'll issue an informal notice of violation, which requires them to repair it. If they complete these repairs in a reasonable time frame, there will be no penalties associated with those violations.
Thanks, Matthew. Bianca, were you able to catch everything that Matthew said? And are you still having trouble with interpretation? Is there anything I can do to help?
I do have a follow-up question for that. Why is it that when we do something wrong, even getting a ticket from a police officer, we get a violation right away? These companies come and destroy our air quality, and they get a warning to fix the problem and not a monetary. I think that's ridiculous coming from these violations and not getting anything out of them, because essentially we don't even know how long the leak has been, and just to tell them, oh, you need to fix it by this amount of time is ridiculous. It's awful to hear something from CARB statement that they do have enough time to fix a problem. The problem is already there. They're already winning so much money, and for them just to get a slap in the hand is ridiculous. I am sorry. That's awful to hear from this.
I'll say, Bianca, thank you for your comment. Just as a note, the Air District will be following up with fines with violations of the regulation. It usually takes several months for them those fines to be finalized and complete that process. And yes, so certainly for CalGEM, we do look forward to following up with and working with the operators. But if they don't repair these leaks in this situation, we would consider doing additional enforcement.
Thank you. Bianca, do you have any follow-up questions or comments that you'd like to share?
No, not at the moment, but I would like to participate in the meeting. If they could send us a flyer or anything so we could be there, because this is ridiculous to hear something from CalGEM that instead of protecting our human health, they're just giving slap in the hands to these companies and these industries that are affecting our air quality.
So in the chat, Bianca, there's a link that actually Terry Allen put in That link will direct you to the website where you can find more information about the meeting, the next methane task force on the 17th, and we'll provide you a registration link so you can join the meeting.
Thanks, Matthew, and thank you, Bianca, for sharing your very important comments. We're definitely making sure to take note of action items for this agenda item. Matthew, since you are already here, I wanted to see if there were any other updates related to CalGEM that you would like to share at this time that haven't already been shared.
Ellie did a great job covering for us, and those were the main highlights with the inspection results out of Shafter, and then also the upcoming methane task force meeting. So that's it for me for CalGEM for tonight.
Perfect. Thank you so much for those updates. Before we continue on to the next section, I wanted to see if there were any questions or comments from folks that they'd like to share regarding what was the updates that were shared during this item. Not seeing any raised hands or any comments in the chat. So if it's okay with folks, I'm going to go ahead and transition on to the next item, which is our wrap up next steps item. Just give me one moment so I can share my screen.
Oh, and maybe Vanessa, if we don't mind, I do think Cameron just popped in into the chat a comment, but I know that there are actually some big blueprint updates that are happening. So I'm wondering if maybe we could take a sec to pass over to Carb.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Stephanie, for flagging that. Carb, please go ahead.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we are still welcoming more comments to the Blueprint 2.0, and thank you for those that have submitted their comments so far. So I put that link into the chat. And then I also noticed that Rocio sent out an email to the CSCs earlier this morning with a lot of information with the same link to that web page, which includes the final draft of the Blueprint 2.0 and the attachments as well, and then a place for you to submit your comments. And that's all for me.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Cameron. Do folks have any questions or comments about the final draft of the blueprint that they'd like to share? Maybe folks are curious about how they can contribute feedback or the kinds of feedback. Just want to open up the floor to those questions and comments before we continue. All right, not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. Please feel free to add any type of feedback regarding the Blueprint 2.0 by clicking on the link that has been included in the chat. I just want to remind everyone that your feedback is really important to ensuring that implementation of measures is correct and going on. And so we always encourage you to provide any comments that you'd like to share. At this time, I would like to transition on to the wrap up and next steps item. So if you give me one moment, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So to wrap us up for this meeting, I'd like to thank everyone once again for your participation, for taking time out of your schedules to be here today, for engaging in today's agenda items and asking all those questions and comments. We really appreciate it. As we're approaching the end of the meeting, I want to take a moment to provide a few key updates regarding some meetings that are coming up. So first off, we want to remind folks that our next agenda setting meeting will take place next Monday, October 16th at 4 p.m. via Zoom. We always appreciate when folks are able to take time out of their day to attend these agenda setting meetings. And As always, we also encourage members of the CSC to attend if they're able to, and definitely welcome any suggestions that you have on how we can improve the accessibility of these agenda setting meetings, whether you're able to attend these meetings or not. If you have any suggestions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our contact information is located on this slide, and you can also reach out to the Air District at the number and email that you see in front of you. You can also let us know now if you have any suggestions by raising your hand, or you can also comment in the chat, and we'll definitely take note of that. And as for the next CSC meeting, that will take place on Monday, November 13th at 5 p.m. on Zoom. We look forward to seeing you there. Hope you can make it. And at this time, we'd like to take a moment to review some of the action items that we've captured in our tracker during our meeting today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that everyone can see those. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Diana. So we have 5 action items for today. I'm going to go ahead and read these out. The first one, regarding the annual report, the Air District will be following up with more information about violations and related fines. We'll add more context about timing for upcoming projects, and we'll also add information about air monitoring reports and spikes as requested by the CSC. Next up, the Air District will reach out to CSC members who haven't received physical copy of the annual report to ensure that they have that report. Next up, Valley Can will host Tune In, Tune Up event at KC Fairgrounds on October 28th, and all CSC members are invited to attend. For the next action item, we have Richland School District will send out outreach for passenger vehicle replacement. And last but not least, the Air District will provide information that is needed for the passenger vehicle replacement application to CSC members. And so I want to remind folks that we create action items in real time during each CSC meeting. And as a result, we might not have captured everything that you requested. And so if we misinterpreted or missed your request, please let us know by raising your hand or commenting in the chat. Linda, I see you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
I'm a little confused by 4. I don't think that Richland School District, we wanted them to send outreach. It was their parking lot was an option for the passenger vehicle replacement. And the same thing with Richland Chevrolet. Maybe that got confused. I don't know what happened there.
Thanks, Linda. Maybe for item 4, and Vanessa or Dana, let me know if this is the gist. The Air District will definitely look into the suggested locations for the repair measure that CSC members. I'm not sure if that's what this one was trying to capture, but if it's related to the Richland School District office, we will investigate that to see if it's suitable for potentially an event for our repair measure.
Okay, got it. I will make sure to change that. Thank you so much, Linda, for pointing that out.
And then maybe
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Vanessa, this is Stephanie. Maybe for number 2, I'll just maybe share that folks that are on our regular mailing list should have received, or if they haven't already, maybe in the next couple of days, we'll get a copy of our annual report. So maybe for item 2, if you haven't received the annual report in the next couple of days and you want to, or if you're not on our regular mailing list, if you could let us know. Because I do think we've kind of mailed out the copies to the folks that usually get mailed materials from us.
I didn't know if you also wanted to add to 4. We talked about the restaurants of possibly having, did that need to be added so you can look into those?
We wrote the list. Sorry, this is Diana. We wrote the list down. So maybe Four
we
could
don't need
be,
an
look into location. Yes, and then we don't have to be specific as to which of the locations, because we wrote those down separately.
Okay, because
So maybe that's it.
Repair, and then there was the replacement, and so the replacement, there was one saying.
Right, so there's two
on-
things,
on
right,
the
exactly. There's one for the
Yeah.
repair and then one for the outreach events. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about, Linda?
Yeah, yes, that was it.
Got it.
And maybe Diana, to kind of capture what Linda is saying, maybe we say for repair and replace measures.
Okay.
Item, and we will follow up on, that's a great point, Linda. We'll follow up on both of those things, the restaurant recommendations and the tune in, tune up event recommendations.
And then Stephanie, you literally just said this and I wasn't totally tracking. So the folks who would like a hard copy of the report who have not gotten it, what should they do?
Yeah, just for number 2, I just wanted to clarify if folks can reach out to us if they haven't received it, because we actually have mailed out already what the usual people that we mail printed materials. So if you could please reach out to us if you are still, you haven't received it, you'd like to receive a copy. I saw already Bianca is requesting for a hard copy. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Are there any additional changes that folks would like to make to the action items that you see on your screen, or maybe we might have missed some? Okay, not seeing anything. Before we move on to the next section, just want to open up the floor for any questions or comments about any of these items. Okay, not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. Thanks again, everyone, for clarifying those action items. We really appreciate your help. At this time, I'm going to transition onto public comment, and Dr. McDonald is going to facilitate that portion of the meeting. So,
Actually, Vanessa, can you share your slides again with that last slide? I think that would be awesome. Thank you.
Happy to.
So I'm Diana, and we made it to almost the end of the meeting. So thank you, everyone, for your continued engagement. These, even though they're late in the evening and the evening isn't when I'm most energetic, these meetings always energize me with all of your comments and participation. So at this time, we would like to open up the floor to anyone who would like to make any final comments. As a reminder, community member comments are really important to this process, as you've seen throughout this whole meeting. We want to ensure that the program is shaped by all of your perspectives. So if you would like to make a comment, instructions are displayed on this slide. So you could raise your hand on Zoom, as people have been doing throughout the evening. Or if you're calling in on the phone, you could press *9 to unmute. You could also put your public comments in the chat if you would like to do that. And reminder, who is ever monitoring the YouTube, to check the YouTube live comments to see if we have any comments there. So I'll be quiet and see if anybody has any public comments to make at this time. Not seeing anything in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. So
I'm not seeing any comments on YouTube Live either, Diana.
Great, thanks, Vanessa. So it appears that there are no comments from the public. Oh, wait, yep. It appears that there's no comments from the public in the meeting or on YouTube. As a reminder, members of the public can also view, or anybody can view, past meetings on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/healthyairliving. And I'm gonna actually put that in the chat too, because that's kind of hard to say all at once. So that's, if you want to see any of the past meetings, they're on that YouTube channel. So I think that's it. So on behalf of the Harder & Company team, I'd like to thank everyone here today for your continued commitment to AB617. This is obviously really important work that you are all participating in, and we appreciate your time in the evening. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Stephanie to make any final remarks before closing the meeting.
Thank you, Diana. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here at tonight's meeting, providing your feedback. I know I'm definitely looking forward, and our district team is looking forward to rolling out these programs that we definitely are excited for residents of the Shafter community to take advantage of. And we'll continue to bring you updates as we have them. And I know it'll be another month before we see you all, but we'll definitely kind of in the meantime continue on implementation and hope to bring you all even more exciting updates next month. In the meantime, we are happy to take any feedback about really anything that you all have, annual reporting, any questions, comments that you have on any of our CERT measures, like the heavy duty truck replacement measure. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, thank you all for being here and have a great night. And maybe I'll pass back to Diana to fully close us off.
Well, yeah, if we want to have any final comments, we're here. Otherwise, I think you could enjoy your evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.